Okay, hello everybody, welcome. So happy to see the community coming in. This is going to be an awesome morning. We're going to get really tactical and strategic with Eric Manstof from Fractional CMO. Before we dive into the good stuff, we love hearing from the community. And in fact, what I've noticed with these events is that it's often that the attendees end up coming together and using the chat to give each other feedback or connect with each other about what they're building. So please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself. In fact, why don't you go ahead and drop in where you're dialing in from, and maybe a link to your LinkedIn or the startup you're building or whatever project you're working on. We would love to see a little bit about what you're up to. I'm Kara. I head up marketing for Hustle Fund. We're an early stage venture capital fund. We believe great founders look like anyone and come from anywhere. And I'm joined today by Eric Manstof, Chief Growth Officer for Fractional CMO. We're going to be talking about automating your lead gen today and all the things that come with it. We're going to get into it very soon, but just quickly setting expectations here. Eric and I are going to chat for a while about all of the things that you read about in the description for this event, and get as tactical and dig as deep as we possibly can. We're leaving plenty of time for Q&A. So if you have questions, and it can be as specific to your business as you like, drop them in the Q&A box. If you can keep them out of the chat, we're much more likely to actually see them and address them. And my colleague Janelle will come in towards the end there and help us moderate Q&A. So you'll get to see Janelle as well. Okay, enough from me. Eric, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. This is going to be fun. So before we get started, Eric, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm the Chief Growth Officer over at Fractional CMO, and we do operational implementations of HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, Salesforce, and kind of any automation in between. And then I personally have been a fractional CMO and have built multiple marketing departments and fixed them over the last 10 years and started a couple companies myself. And I come from an entrepreneurial family. My dad actually was the first franchise bagel bakery creator in the world. So I had a lot of fun 5-year-old conversations throwing down interesting, I'm sure very junior ideas about how to grow businesses, but that definitely started things off well.
Hey, if you're going to have a franchise in the family, I'm all about it being bagels. It sounds like a good option. And so, okay, you work with a number of different startups, it sounds like, with Fractional CMO. What kinds of companies do you typically work with some of those programs that you just mentioned?
Yeah, we work with technology firms for the most part. So the strategic work I do is fixing the go-to-market, demand generation strategies, and then setting up operational automations to be able to operationalize revenue creation so that revenue gets created in an automated way. So you don't have to just continually be on the campaign cycle, but you build them, set them for the right segments and automate it. And we work mostly with early stage tech companies through to publicly traded tech companies with a little bit of manufacturing companies built in.
Oh, cool. You kind of runs the gamut. Do you think that there's a stage at which makes sense to reach out to you or another fractional CMO type of agency? Like, do you think a startup needs to be at a certain stage in their development or like customer discovery before they reach out?
I think once a company has a pretty good idea of what their customer looks like and is in a position where they want to start streamlining the acquisition process, maybe they're standing up a CRM for the first time, or they've been building a lot of operational stuff, but it's kind of a ball of yarn that's all knotted up because they were just growing fast and weren't thinking about those pipelines or those different tracks. Then you can give us a call to set it up or to untangle that mess and set a company up for the next stage of growth. From what a lot of companies have told me, once they get to that like past Series A kind of place, everything really rides on automation. but it's also a good idea at the seed stage to be setting things up correctly from the get-go. It can actually help accelerate you from seed to Series A much faster.
I can see that. And actually, everyone, the way that we met Eric and CMO is that we hired them to do some work for Hustle Fund. And I have to say, moving from our old email marketing platform to HubSpot with your assistance was kind of a game changer and unlocked a lot of automation opportunities that has been really fun to play with and has also just saved me a ton of time. So can personally vouch for them. But let's go ahead and dive into the automation of lead gen and some of the tactics behind it. So we kind of just touched on this, but Eric, do you think that there is a type of company, a type of industry that will most benefit from some of the strategies that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I'd say the B2B models for the most part. So B2B sales-led motions, but also B2B2C and product-led growth motions all benefit from marketing automations. B2C does as well, like direct to consumer, but that's just kind of a different beast. Whereas like the HubSpots and the Marketos and the Salesforces are really set up for that B2B interaction. And even more so, like it could be anybody, but targeting the enterprise is something a lot of B2B companies want to do. You can also use it for targeting SMB, but the other Braze is a program that's really useful for those B2C folks. So we really specialize in that B2B arena.
Nice, makes sense. There's a lot of automation that happens with B2B, but one thing that seems like it's really critical to understand and mess around with before setting up automation is, as you mentioned, understanding who your customer is. There's a concept that we talk about a lot in tech when it comes to customer discovery, and that's persona. Mm-hmm. How does persona come into play with automation? How do startups even get started making a persona, especially when they're still trying to figure out who their target persona is?
Yeah, so a lot of companies want to jump into automation right away, but really what you're doing is you're automating something that already exists, or you're accelerating communication with your target audience so that you're meeting the audience where they want to be met. So the simplest way of understanding marketing is people want stuff, and then they also don't want stuff. And that can be the simplest version of a persona. But then it's really helpful to understand what's the total market, and then what's the total available market to you based on your solution. And then where do you have a competitive advantage, which we would call our ideal customer profile. And then within that, you're going to have, let's say, a target organization, especially an early stage startup, really should just be going after one. And if they can't make up their mind, they think that there's not enough people in that one market, I'd say to then create more of an umbrella kind of messaging where it's not against that industry, but it's against the type of problem that maybe is experienced by multiple industries. But the general thinking in startup land is to get a toehold into a market and be a competitive solution there. There's a couple more pieces in persona that are really important. There's understanding the buying committee, and that all the people inside the buying committee might have different motivations. They might want different stuff and not want different stuff, and they might not all be the same. So the financial buyer, like the CFO and the CMO, if you're selling into marketing, may have completely conflicting objectives, and marketing to them individually correctly can be really important so that those two people are bought in, but they're bought in under completely different messaging because they want totally different stuff. And you may have like a toehold and an influencer. Toehold being like, it could be the secretary to the CEO, somebody who's a lot easier to talk to than the CEO. And like the influencer could be the person who actually uses the solution. Let's say it was an individual salesperson or an individual engineer. So the engineer is going to be pitching internally. The toehold person might have been able to get you the introduction over to them. Looks like there's a hand raise.
Janelle, is there a question we should answer? Okay, we're going to keep going then.
Yeah, and then just another component of this to round out the idea is you've got the buying committee, you got the ideal customer profile, which is like the company itself, and then the individual person you're going to be creating a solution for inside that company. And then there's the buying committee who's going to support the purchase decision. And then outside of that, you also want to rank those individual people's problems by, like, they have a problem, they know they have a problem, they're actively trying to find a solution for the problem, they have budget and timeline and are ready to switch. So once you have all that information, you can then start thinking through in a theoretical way, what is the exact process that person is going to go through to build a relationship with you as a company, and then you create a content calendar against that. And this all leads to the automation. You need to really know all this stuff before you can start automating that customer journey. And then once you really know it really well, then you can start to create pretty amazing advanced demand generation programs that interact with the consumer as much as in a similar way that you'd be interacting with them in the real world. So it feels like a call and response, really pulling them towards you versus just, here's a lead list, let's go crush it with cold calls. You maybe convert 4% of the list and everybody else never wants to talk to you again. So automating the nurture process properly can really accelerate revenue in the long run. Like from seed to Series A, it might take 2 years. Well, you don't want to burn down the house just because you're trying to get to the next stage. Then you get to the next stage, and then what are you going to do? So thinking about it holistically from that persona angle, and then automatically nurturing people correctly can really facilitate a company's growth.
It's interesting. So it sounds like persona is like the foundation of all of the automation process that's going to happen, that's going to come later. And so when you work with a client who has a number of different personas that they might be working with or marketing to, do you have them create like fake personas for each of those types of people?
Yeah, it's really important to do so. And then to segment your database against those different personas. So one message isn't going to perform perfectly for all the different subset of personas. So tailoring your messaging correctly to those individual groups is really important. And then there's a thing that, just because I'm here, I like to pitch this to the startup world. You need to go validate your personas. Don't just have internal conversations and think this is the correct thing and then go spend $50,000 against it. Like, you want to go test out the car before you drive it. You don't just buy it online. Like, so you need to go have actual conversations with these people whom you think are the personas and validate your hypotheses. That way you don't mess up by accident and, you know, waste your investors' cash. If you do this, it's sort of like you validate all these assumptions, and then those validations become like the perfect messaging. And you can even start asking them questions about how they purchased their most recent thing that was similar to yours and what was the journey. And then that can be the foundation for your marketing automation.
It sounds like what you're suggesting also is different funnel for different personas, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And by funnel, we're talking about marketing funnels, not necessarily sales funnels. So can you, just for all the newbies, including myself, can you just like very quickly tell me what a funnel is?
Yeah. So a funnel is, so you're all in a funnel right now, audience. So there was a message that went out. You clicked on something, you signed up for a webinar, you put it on your calendar. Each one of those little steps is a step in the funnel. It's the step in the buying process to get, or the relationship process to get to a specific goal. There might have been like 6 or 7 steps in this little funnel. Each one of those has their own individual conversion rates. And if you, let's say we run hundreds of webinars, we can see the conversion rates at every single one of those areas. And then we can come up with additional hypotheses to understand why a specific area, a specific stage is not converting correctly. And then you can even dive into the segment to understand which of these personas is converting and which ones of them are not. Oh, there's really only just one that's dragging our GPA down. Let's just give them a different messaging at this particular point in the funnel, and then it can improve the downstream metrics. So you have marketing funnels and sales funnels. And a funnel is really a series of actions that a person takes to get them from point A to point B. Like, I met someone, I gave them a phone number to have a meeting. We had the meeting. We started building a relationship. We're interested in having a future conversation. We start doing some sort of engagement together. We upsell on that engagement, and then they go tell 2 friends that this was a good engagement. So like that's a sales funnel, but that could also be a marketing funnel too. Like you clicked on an ad, you learned about, you clicked on a posted webinar, you liked it, you went and downloaded Slack, and then from Slack, you went and told 4 of your friends, and then they onboarded those people. So that's a funnel as well. Anything can really be a funnel. It's not that like ClickFunnels concept with crazy landing page stuff. Like that exists, but it's better to just think of it as what is the pathway of this interaction, and then segment it up by the different stages, and then spin it and see which of the try and have a different view of the different types of people going through it. And then over time, you start separating those people into their own micro funnels through automated segmentation, and you deliver the right message at those right inflection points, and then everybody converts so much better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so much to break down here. I want to talk about how to think about creating a funnel for different personas. So let's say your product is designed for it's a marketing enablement tool. And so you're probably selling to a CMO, but maybe you also have to get buy-in from the CFO. And then, you also need to get the user excited, which is maybe more like a senior marketing associate. So you're going to have different messaging for each of those personas. How is the frequency of the messaging going to be different for each of those personas, as well as the channel you're using for each of the personas?
Sure, it could be. So that's a blend of marketing and sales to interact with all those different groups. So in a early stage tech firm, for instance, has limited budget and limited labor resources. So it can be really helpful to choose the persona that's most susceptible to being marketed to get in the door, and then be pitching that person once you get an interaction, like meeting put together with them. Or even before that, like really trying to get them into a nurture funnel and get them to be engaged over time with multiple pieces of content to build that relationship with the brand. And then that person can go influence the rest of the community. And you can even track that. Like, let's say we only went and targeted that senior marketing associate user because they're the person who has the immediate pain. That's that they want to get away from something. So we talk to that and show them how they can get away from that pain by using this solution. And then you start the penetration into the account, the company, from that Normandy beach into the country. And then from there, you break in further. And then once you're inside the company, you may then start marketing to some of the other personas, but you're not going to waste your money until you have that inside person. That's one strategy that I've employed. And sometimes you'll want to market to them all, not knowing which one of them is going to start the engagement. But like maybe the CFO just like couldn't care less about the user's experience. Really, they're just caring about what is the ROI on the investment. So they're not the one you want to talk to just yet, unless you're trying to outcompete something that's really expensive and you can help them save a lot of money. So that could even be the toehold into the company. You can even rank the needs state and pain of all the different personas. It might not be the user whom you start with. It could be the CEO who just says, I want to load down this completely new program on the company that's going to help my management goals. And the user goes like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. So it's kind of thinking about who is going to have a problem that they're aware of, that they're open and willing to make a change from. So depending on the company and the solution they're selling, it could be any of those.
Yep. And so thinking about the messaging and getting that right for each of those personas as it relates to the pain that they're experiencing, right? Because I think we can all agree that when someone has a problem, that's when they're most likely to go look for a solution. How do you test messaging for various personas to make sure that you're getting it right, especially if you're doing a paid media strategy, ads? You don't want to blow your whole ad budget on testing the messaging right before you see conversion. So is there a way to kind of skip to sort of get the messaging right and then go hard with your ad budget?
Yeah, so that's the right next question. So the next piece you want to do once you have these assumptions, and they are all assumptions, everybody. Nobody knows anything. I've had the most amazing assumptions and they're completely proved wrong. Like on the whiteboard, it made total sense. Like against 5 other people, and we were trying really hard to break each other's arguments on purpose in a friendly way. And you go and test it in the market, and it all falls flat because there was a variable you weren't aware of. And that's so it's like betting. So if you go bet on a stock, if you're a hedge fund trader and you've got 10 stocks you could go put $100 million on, you're going to want to try and make it less of a guess, and you're going to want to make it a for sure knowing, or as close to a for sure knowing as you can, so you can get a return on investment. So you're spending money in your 401k, and you want to make sure that you're going to get the right return so you can retire on time. So treat investors' money with the same level of caution. So you take very small bets. Let's say you've got 5 different personas and a couple different messages that you think are going to work with each one of those personas. 5 and then 2. So that's 10 different messaging. So 2 per each segment. So you'll target the different segments and then test those different messaging. I actually like to do 5. So you'll have 5 different messages, and you can even structure them differently based on different things you know about the persona. It could be any one of these 5 things, and then see which one of those gets the highest click-through rate. Okay, this message really worked. This one didn't really. Okay, well, let's now spin up 5 more messages and see if we take variations of the one that succeeded for the CFO, which ones additionally are going to work further. Okay, this one, after 2 or 3 layers of testing, is 75% better than everything else. So then you can have a real clear understanding of what's working in the market, and then simultaneously take some conversations with your existing customers or prospects. Hopefully you have some friendlies who you're trying to learn from, and take that message that's been kind of proven out and take some of the messages that didn't exactly work and start asking them questions about these messages. So it can be a qualitative, with human interaction mixed with the quantitative information to give you like a real true idea, especially at the early stage where like you don't know this stuff. And then you go put a lot of money on the winning bet. So that way you're not spinning the roulette wheel and like hoping it lands on red. It's like there's an 85% chance that this bet is going to work. And then you can incrementally add more bets if you're unsure, until it becomes like a real through, the betting is continually working without any breaks at any point. Then you can go raise even more money and drop it on, because you know you have product market fit, message market fit, and channel market fit, which are kind of the 3 big ones. People always talk about product market fit, but it's the other ones that are equally important. And then before that, it's problem solution fit. That's the first.
Well, let's say those again. So problem solution fit, number 1.
Yes.
Product market fit.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next one?
The next one is channel market fit.
Channel market fit. Basically, where is your audience hanging out online?
Yeah, or in person.
Or in person. We'll do things in person. That's right. And then what's that last one?
Is message market fit. So,
okay, have you seen that? Have you seen, for, let's say an audience hangs out on LinkedIn and on Twitter, have you found that the channel market fit requires different messaging, just different messaging for Twitter versus LinkedIn, even though it's the same audience?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
So different people are going to have different intents often on different platforms. So you can test the exact same ad creative and ad messaging. Like, you build a Facebook ad and test the same thing on LinkedIn and see if it works. And sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. So then you need to go adjust it. Also make sure that it's a 1-to-1 test where you're actually exactly targeting the same audience. So sometimes if you just rely on the targeting characteristics that LinkedIn and Facebook provide to you, they run their algorithms differently. So it might not be a 1-to-1 test. That's something you think about. A way to circumvent this, which is something I do more or less all the time now with B2B, is I only target lists mostly. So I'll download on Zoom Info or something like all the names of the target audience I'm going after, and then I only target those people inside the ad platforms because I know these are the only people who are going to buy my enterprise HR solution. So if you're doing that, then you have the exact audiences that you're testing, and then you can see which platform with that exact message works. Let's say it worked really well on LinkedIn, but you wanted to expand to Facebook so you can get more ad inventory, more placements. Well, then you might need to go back and do that same testing and maybe think through what is the person's goal being on Facebook, being on LinkedIn. People sometimes say like LinkedIn's a B2B platform. It's like, yeah, but people aren't going there asking to be sold. They're going there to learn something or to connect with someone. That's their mission. And then on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, it might be a different mission. So like they could be there to like waste time. They could be there to have fun. They could be there to get news. So then you can frame your messaging in those goal orientations and increase the conversion rate over there.
Interesting. Have you found success with some of like lead magnets versus just messaging instead of just saying like, hey, click on this and come check out our website? Have you found success with a certain channel being more susceptible to here's a listicle or here's a quiz or something that will engage them as opposed to just like learn more?
I think learn more is one that can be tried early on in the testing cycle, but unless it's a hair on fire problem, you might not have the greatest success because it's not something people are actively trying to fix. So if you send the messaging that's like oriented around a product, fix your analytics for these things. And in their head, they're like, my analytics are fine, I don't care. But if you were to build a relationship with them, you might have more permission to talk about those analytics and maybe surface a problem for them that's really there, but they need a little bit more pushing. So in that case, you would use call to actions and content that's higher up on the funnel, more for like brand building that is helping them with something in their daily lives. And that could also be entertainment. Entertainment could be something that's helpful to them. You could have a whole LinkedIn thing just on like memes and GIFs and things like that get their attention, make them smile when they see your logo. And then you can see the people who are engaging and then set up retargeting campaigns. This is a funnel to then send them more mid-funnel content that's talking about their problem. And then everybody who clicks, not about your solution, but really engaging with a new way to think about problem, then they could have a call to action on that document itself that then links to that learn more thing. So by understanding your persona, you can then create a funnel that's appropriate for that individual, and you'll have all the metrics so you can then test it to make sure it works.
Oh, I love that. Janelle, we should be using GIFs and memes all the time if we're not already. Also, hi, Janelle. Do we have a question?
Hi. Yeah, I thought I would jump in because there's a lot of good questions coming in, and I wanted to ask this one before we get away from funnels. Could you just at a high level describe the difference between a marketing funnel and a sales funnel? And now I think we have to add entertainment funnel to that list.
I think you definitely should do entertainment funnels. There's some great programs. I'll put a plug for Expandy. It's a really amazing program that can do automated nurture on LinkedIn itself. So as you build engagement with your fun gifts, because people really just want to go to LinkedIn because they don't want to be doing their work in the middle of the day. You know, you're giving them what they want, and then you retarget all those people who've smiled at your logo with some of that downstream content. And then you can do other advanced stuff where you retarget. I'll explain the funnel thing in a second. This is kind of a funnel. So, and this is the automation stuff I think everybody came here for. It's like you're feeding them. This is like a wild advanced funnel, but you'll get it really quick. It's like you're sending them amazing gifts about how difficult the life of a CFO at a marketing heavy company is. And they get to really bond with that message. Then you retarget them through LinkedIn advertising and email only after they've engaged in that top tier. And you could be sending the messages across all those other channels to get them to engage further. And you're tracking all of this inside your marketing CRM like HubSpot and with like Expandy as an add-on. And as those people continue to engage deeper in the funnel, the conversion rates are going to start going up dramatically. And at that point, you can start engaging them with other things exactly based on their activities. So you could then send out in an automated way physical gifts to their office and have a notification sent to your sales rep when that gift lands at their office. And you could call them and say, hey, did you get my gift? And then you start the sales funnel, but you're not cold calling them and just destroying your relationship with them. It's only after you've built up this huge relationship and you're tackling the people who've showed enough signal. And no one sends a gift, like, I don't know anybody who does this, who sends a gift after that whole relationship construction. And then you're on to the sales funnel. And the sales funnel is like, have a conversation, book a meeting, engage in a selling conversation, close a pilot or close the deal. And then after the deal is closed, have an upsell, renewal, or referral. That's the traditional thing. And all that can also be automated and should. And you should have dashboards that are showing the effectiveness per persona through each one of those marketing funnels and sales funnels and seeing which of the groups are working and which ones are failing. And then proactively, this is like the job, is continually going through the data to find the diamonds and the tigers and the averages. So you've got there, if you have a conversion rate from marketing to first meeting of like 6%, well, it could be that one of your segments is converting at 90%, but then there's another one that's converting at 0.02%, and that's dragging the average down. That's the tiger in the data. So you want to segment that away, do it, and then test that group up and get them to perform. And then you got your core audience all of a sudden is at 90%, and those are your diamonds. So thinking of it like this, it's a very different way to market than like these leads are bad. It's like, well, which ones and at which point did they get bad? And then why are they bad? Versus just like sales saying bad leads. It's a very different orientation.
So, okay, I want to dig into tigers and diamonds. I love that so much, by the way. Sounds like the name of a song from Mumford Sons that's going to come out next week or something like that. So tigers and diamonds, you've got diamonds are the leads that are converting really well. Tigers are the leads that are dragging down the conversion rate when you look at your overall dashboard. Yeah. To be able to distinguish between tigers and diamonds, you need to, I imagine this is where cohort tracking comes in. Is that right?
Definitely. So let's say we ran some Google ads to this company we want to sell marketing technology to. And we've got our 5 personas that we're targeting. And we led with just a single message. But we sent the message to a list. So we know exactly who we're sending ads to. And we see that 4 of the personas within the company are doing okay. The 5th is doing abysmal. And the 6th is doing incredible. So you got a really incredible one, that's your diamond. And then you've got a really abysmal one, that's your tiger. So if the CEO says, how are our ads doing? And you just report the average, like, oh, our conversion rate's like 7%, but you don't dig further, you're missing a complete story of, well, if we were to just get rid of these tigers, our conversion rate, even with our kind of middling groups and the one incredible group, is going to be far higher. You could have a 20% conversion. So maybe just make a strategic choice not to be going after that tiger. And then all of a sudden your ads, to report that number differently, our ads are doing amazing, 20%, far above benchmark. So that you can, the only way to do that is if you have good tracking and good attribution and good reporting throughout the system. That's another way that like an operations firm like mine will set all that up so that you can actually know what's working and what's not, and not just have these more simplistic views of, it's almost like, you know, daytime news. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's like more nuanced than that.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay, so every time you say something, I have like 4 things I want to dig deeper into, and I've got to pick something here. So I want to talk about attribution because you mentioned that that's a really important thing. But before we get to attribution, just let's wrap up the cohort a little bit more. What kinds of things would determine cohort? Is it when they signed up for your email, or is it the type of industry they're in, or is it the role that they have? How do you determine that?
So yes, so what you just said are the right ways of thinking about it. But then as your company gets more advanced, like all sorts of stuff is a cohort. Like cohort is really just segmenting a group of people who have similar characteristics. Like at an early stage company, it's going to be this stuff. But then let's say you're Facebook. It could be everybody who clicked on that button and they've got 2 billion users or whatever it is. So like, okay, there's 100 million people who clicked on that button, but there's only 20 million people who clicked on this button. Now we got to go figure out who these people are. So let's try and understand what are the cohort characteristics. So it might be these like customer persona level stuff, but it could be like, maybe you don't know what they're, maybe it doesn't track that easily across. It could be people who've been online more than 5 times in the last month, click on this button, and under 5 times, click on this button. And then you could go do further data research to try and figure out additional things about them. Like, oh, these ones have blue in their profile, and these ones have yellow, and these ones have orange. I have no idea why that's the case, but it is, and it's pretty consistent. So I'm giving you a very academic answer here. Like, so in a early stage company, it's probably going to be you're talking to the right person or the wrong person, or it's the right person, but you're saying the wrong thing. So you need to isolate those different variables in a really important way, like in a very critical way. So you can't just say like, well, it's never going to work for CFOs. It's like, how much did you test? Maybe you've just been saying the wrong stuff a lot. It's like you did your early research talking to these people and you've closed some deals with them already. Maybe you need to go back out and have additional conversations to see why that ad didn't work. Maybe you're just playing these people with Facebook, I mean, not Facebook, with Starbucks gift cards so that you can keep asking them questions. That's a great technique. Just like set aside $500 a quarter to give to your top 10 people who are going to keep feeding you information so that, let's say you're 6 months into your company and you should be aggressively testing this stuff to try and figure it out. Well, you've got your focus group. So it's not just you and your co-founder on the whiteboard, like scribbling stuff and making guesses and then spending money to try and figure it out. It's you with your co-founder scribbling things. It's doing the testing out in the market, doing the data analysis to try and make sense of it and see if it was a message, was it the person, was it the channel, are we solving the right problem? Is the product feature messed up? Which one of those variables is it? And then go talk to the people and say like, I think it was this. I have a messed up feature and I'm not talking about it right. How does this work for you? And they like scrunch up their nose and you're like, well, thanks for scrunching up your nose. So then now what do we do?
Nose scrunches, very helpful. Hard to quantify, but very helpful. Okay, one more question, which is when I talk to startups who are looking to increase conversion on their lead gen, one of the things that I recommend is to reduce friction by asking for as little information as possible. And so often that means email address and first name, and like that's it, and get that information later. Is there a way to automate everything you talked about? I feel like you do eventually need more information in order to be able to create these cohorts in a way that's helpful for your business. Is there a way to automate that process, the getting more information about your leads?
Great question. So let's say, first, I agree with you. Having reduced friction is really important. But then later, once you have a funnel, so there's different things you need to get. First, you need to get enough people interested in the first place. That's top of funnel. And then once you have too many conversions to deal with, which a lot of companies eventually have, then you actually want to add more friction so that the limited salespeople hours is utilized on people who are most likely to convert. And then the other people, you go nurture them. So you could have a series of forms. Like there's different stages. Like let's say you're Monday.com and you're just absolutely flooded with leads. Well, I actually know this. Their first one is just email only. But then later on, when you go sign up for the actual product, the thing is about this long. So they really want you to qualify yourself before they spend time going and talking to them. So what Monday.com sure does is they have you just enter in your email address, and then they have a very good data provider on the back end, and they have a marketing automation loop out from their CRM that's enriching that information from purchase data, because there's data providers out there that have giant lists of characteristics on all of us. You go purchase that, and you only purchase it. There's like payment triggers inside these platforms. You only purchase it once that email comes through, and then you can decide what information you want to get. And then you can use that information for your retargeting campaigns. All right, so they inbounded once. Now I'm going to go increase my budgets on all people who've inbounded, and I'm going to take the data that came in through the purchase data extraction, and I'm going to automatically inject that information into my email that goes out to them for their second touch. And then they just feel like you're psychic. You want to be careful that you're not creepy on it, but it can be like, I know recently you just raised a round of funding, and your boss, Jeff, I'm sure cares about this. And this is like the persona research stuff. And I know that there's going to be a buying cycle at the end of this quarter, and you can look up and see what technology they have. And this piece of software you have has had all these horrible articles written about it. So you should really watch our video on why our thing is so amazing. And that's all, each one of those pieces is automatically injected information.
Cool and creepy. Cool. I guess the only the risk there, I had someone cold email me recently. It was really a good cold email. It was very personalized, but they got the data wrong about what tool we were using. And it was kind of a turnoff. I did reply. I was like, hey, thanks, we're not using that tool anymore. But there is a risk there. So I guess that's just a risk you have to take when you're using the automation.
Yeah, you should think through the problem. Also, like, that'll happen. Like, you're going to get issues that come up, but then as those issues come up, then you go solve those issues.
Yeah.
So, or you get a different data provider.
Yeah, different data provider. Okay, we had promised to allocate plenty of time for Q&A. I see we have a ton in there. Janelle, do you wanna? Yes, hello, hi.
Hello. Yes, lots of really good questions. So I'll try to get through these in a logical order. Since you were just talking about automation and talking about when is a good time, both in the stage of the cycle of nurturing those leads, and also you mentioned the different stages of the company. Can you talk about can you give a couple of examples of automation and automation tools at early stage companies, and then as your company grows?
Yeah. So in early stage company, you're trying to validate those different fits, your problem solution, product market, message market, channel market. And you're trying to collect as much information as you can, just as much as collecting revenue. And revenue for an early stage company, in a lot of ways, it is money, but it's more of a validation of those things. So like when I said this stuff, they gave us money. Oh, great, money's cool. But what's even cooler is I have something that is repeatable. They respond to this message. So when you're doing all the testing like we described to get to those fits, which is one of the most important things when you're going from seed to Series A and then Series A to Series B, is proving to the investors that you have a machine that can be repeatable, is doing consistent data collection about your audience through dashboards, and what things did they interact with and what things did they not interact with. So that's the first thing. So you have a form that's hooked up. The form should be as minimal as possible as described. That form then could ping a data provider. You could also have an automation for doing outbound email and some nurture sequences. So it could be that simple. You've got dashboards, you've got nurture sequences, outbound emails, a form that has some data integrations, and then probably some analysis on your website to see what people are doing. It doesn't need to be that much more complex. At the early stage, you want to have robust spreadsheets that are showing you all these different characteristics about your people and your growth marketing experimentation cycle so that you're systematically testing all this stuff. So the actual marketing automation can be kind of thin. The other piece, once you're just a little bit past that very earliest stage, is automating your lead lifecycle journey and automating your database organization. So let's say you figured out that you've got 3 personas you want to communicate with, and you want to communicate with them in different ways. Setting up different lists inside of your marketing automation system. And then once those are set up, then you want to be able to track what are the activities that any individual person did and how much engagement do they have with you. So then you implement something called lead scoring. So lead scoring will put a value on any one of these different interactions. So it could be arbitrarily 0 through 100. And every activity has a different score. So maybe at 30, they receive a different marketing campaign. At 60, they receive a different marketing campaign. At 90, they receive a different marketing campaign. At 100, you start talking to them. So if you have that, plus cohort analysis, like the segmented lists, plus the dashboarding, plus the pipeline, then you have a pretty good system that allows you to not spend so much time trying to figure out where is anybody at any given moment. Then let's say you get a bit more cash, you could then use any of those sales lifecycle and lead scoring as triggers for future advertising, all done automatically.
That's magical. You've mentioned, sorry, Jenna, I know you have a lot of questions to get through. You mentioned data collectors, data processors. Is there one that you recommend, like a particular platform that you like?
So Zoom Info is pretty standard. I think Clearbit is becoming a really great player in the space. I think those are really good. There's also HubSpot is one that is really easy to use for all this automation stuff. And I would consider lead forensics as well, because then you can, this is another automation, you can de-anonymize the people on your website, and it's really inexpensive. So it has a big database that matches people's IP addresses, I believe. And then it will actually send you a list of all the people who've been to your website, whereas previously it was all anonymous. So then you can use that and load those people into campaigns, because previously they would have just been there and then gone, and you wouldn't know what to do with them except for maybe retargeting them based on IP address. But now it's like, I'm going to go send them a cup of coffee to their audience because this was my tier A list audience and they just showed up.
What was that last one called? Something forensics?
Lead forensics.
Lead forensics. Cool. Thank you. That was super helpful. All right, Janelle, floor's yours.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so how about this one? Oh my gosh, there's so many good questions. And we're getting close on time. So how about this? Someone said, okay, there's been a ton of really good information shared. When this webinar is over, if you're an early stage founder, what should be the first thing you do?
It depends what's going on in your company. So you may have some of this stuff figured out, maybe you don't. I think the first thing is ask yourself, are you actually talking to your customers or are you making guesses? And then there's a book called Talking to Humans. If you don't know how to do proper customer development interview questions, I'll give you the shorthand. Anything you think you know that hasn't been validated, it's an assumption, it's not a fact. It's a theory about the world. So write it as a statement and then convert it into an open-ended question. It's like how and what questions. So like, yeah, that's pretty much it. How, what, maybe where. So like when someone said, when you think they like light blue, instead of saying, is light blue your favorite color? And they're like, yeah, I guess, sure. But if you say, what is your favorite color? And they go, it's orange. And you're like, I don't know, that's not what I was thinking. So don't just like feed them the answer. You want to open it up to get the real one. And then if you get a statistically significant number of people saying the same thing, 5 to 25 is fine. It's not perfect, but it gives you an insight. Then you can go make decisions because the world told you something about your features, your messaging, your channels, whatever. You can even do that on your profile photo. This is another automation. Take your profile photo, go to photofeeler.com, sign up for it, click on business, and have business people rate your profile photo. And if your profile photo rates as like a 3, like, go take another photo. So again, you're like, I've done that. I have a great rating on my profile photo, but it was only after like 60 submissions. It's just, I'm just illustrating of like talking to the actual audience is really important. For other people, it would be map out everything you already think you know about your customers into a pipeline or a funnel view, and then try and ask yourself, where can I automate any of these pieces so I can take my very few hours of the day and apply them to something else? And that comes through analysis.
Okay, awesome. Do you have an idea on how many questions you should be asking a customer during customer discovery? I mean, you mentioned earlier, buy them a coffee gift card and keep asking until they don't take the coffee gift card. Basically, you said something like that earlier, but is there a certain number of questions that you would ask?
I'd limit it because people get fatigued. Also, you want to keep the relationship high. So for let's say 20 minutes, maybe after that, unless they're really passionate and they hold you, you want to leave it on a high note. You don't want to just keep extracting and then they don't want to talk to you again, because you want to keep continuity with your friendly group so that you can keep, like, ideally have 5 or 10 interviews with these people over the course of a year. So every time you go do something, you go make them happy because you did it and took their advice, and that's a rare experience for them. There's not that many companies they're probably advising. And if you just continually leave on a high note, it should stay good. This is another piece about customer development interviews. You actually want to monitor their body language as much as you can, because they could be like, yeah, I like light blue. And you're like, do you really? Are you sure about that? So like, you want to, sometimes you can even have 2 people, one who's like looking at the body language and then one person who's like focusing on the script, because they'll tell two totally different stories that the person might not even know. It's like, how do you like your BMW? Like, yeah, it's great. I love it. And it's like, well, tell me more. And like, maybe you know what's wrong with it. Like, BMWs have horrible seats. You're like, how do you enjoy the seats? Yeah, I'm really numb all the time. Oh, so are you sure you like your BMW? Well, now that you ask it like that. So you need to be able to isolate these different components out, and seeing the body language, it's not really creepy. It's just people don't consciously think about some things.
I love it. Okay, so that's great. Now this is an interesting question. When as a company grows, and let's say they have a marketing department and a sales department, how should there be interaction? So let's say marketing is they're top of funnel and they're bringing in qualified leads. What's the interaction like between the marketing and the sales team, and when the handover happens between the two?
2 answers to that. The traditional answer is once a meeting happens, so you hand it over then. But I think a more modern approach is keep marketing to them after the meeting happened. Like, keep ads on to these folks and keep sending them other information that can be beneficial. So maybe email contact stops from the marketing department, it goes to sales, but then it's not going to be that many people, so it's going to be worth the cash to what I call air cover. A lot of people call it this. So you continually put the brand out there. You could keep your gift campaign even higher, like sending out memes and things and pumping ads into everywhere they are, so that it's like Coca-Cola. After you drink Coca-Cola, they're going to want you to still see that image. It's not like it was everywhere and then it disappears. So that positive interaction while they're in the sales funnel can actually help to close the deal. Okay,
awesome. Okay, I have a benchmark and numbers question. So how should a founder, an early stage founder, think about the numbers behind content and persona driven approach to lead gen? Like, should they have certain benchmarks for how many personas, how much content, how often they post, how long it will take to get those to get those leads to convert? That's a pretty broad question, but I wonder if you could kind of tie that down a little for us.
Sure. So content happens at all stages of the funnel. So demand generation, which is sort of what they're talking about, is generating demand or interest in the product services company. So going back to that thing I described earlier, you want to be targeting the people, and especially as an early stage company, who are hair on fire, have these problems. And if you don't, stop building features. Otherwise, or get a lot of funding, because building a market is super expensive. But as an early company who doesn't have a lot of cash, I'd rather be targeting those 3% of people who are clamoring for a solution to the horrible thing they're experiencing than like, hey, this is a problem. I know you should go think about this problem. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to. And then like, you only have so much time and money, so just ignore those folks. That's the first answer, which isn't what you were looking for. But then if you're only targeting those people who have a hair on fire issue, you'll have a much shorter funnel that'll convert much quicker, and you'll have better negotiation leverage once the sale is actually made, because they want the thing more than they want their money. And they're going to give you more money to make the pain go away. So first, you're going to be posting on LinkedIn probably, and some of the blog platforms to get your message out there, and doing webinars and partnerships and those kinds of things. And for that, you just want to keep putting out content and seeing what works. And it's like an iterative process. You can also look at competitors to see what they do. Secondly, in the mid funnel, maybe it's like 3 to 5 pieces of content that you're nurturing them with. It doesn't need to be that much more than that. I would actually say repackage it over and over again until they convert on it. So that, like, maybe they didn't download your ebook. The ebook isn't bad. They haven't even seen the ebook. I've heard people say this. They're like, oh, no one wanted this ebook. Like, no one liked your email that was promoting the ebook. Write a different email, pitch the ebook again. They have no idea what's in the ebook. And then you can see how many people clicked on the big CTA inside the ebook. That'll tell you if they like the ebook or not. So then at the bottom of the funnel, you're going to need pieces of content that support the sales process.
Kara, do we have time for one more?
We have time for one more quick one, and then we got to wrap up.
Okay. Okay, can you quickly describe the differences between funnel construction for something that's priced really high and something that's priced low?
Depends on how much they want it. But if they want it really bad, it could be a really short funnel. If they don't want it really bad, even a cheap thing might be difficult to sell. So, but in general, if the cheap thing is something they want and the expensive thing is something they want, probably it's going to take longer to sell a $40,000 piece of software than it is to sell a $9 piece of software. So you may only need to nurture people a little bit. Maybe they'll even purchase on the first experience and you don't need to keep nurturing them. Like the nurture is for people who have to build a relationship to want to spend that 40 grand. Hopefully the marketing funnel is really short because you're targeting the right groups. It's full of diamonds and there's no tigers. And then it's more of a sales procurement issue. Like that would be an ideal state where you're just stuck in legal and procurement because all the sales and marketing went super easy and you're just, finalizing the deal.
That's a dream scenario. It's a good problem to have, I imagine. Okay, thank you for being so succinct, Eric, and letting us end on time. We want to be respectful of your time and of the hundreds of people who signed up for this webinar. So thank you, Eric, so much for all of your insights and just like unloading your brain into this webinar. I'm very grateful.
Well, great. Thanks so much for having me and asking such great questions. And I'd love to answer everybody's questions. Just send me a direct message.
Amazing. So actually on that note, you guys, I put Eric's LinkedIn in the chat. So he was serious about that. You can actually DM him. And Eric, if anyone saw this, is looking for help with unraveling their ball of yarn or getting some of this stuff set up as they prep for their Series A and beyond, what's the best way for them to touch with the fractional CMO team and get started?
Yeah, send a connection. Go to the website and just fill in the contact us form. You'll end up talking to me probably, and I'll assess all your issues and give you a custom solution. And then if you're interested in more like coaching or fractional CMO work, you can just go to my LinkedIn profile itself. I have an email address right there. You can just email me directly, and then we can set that kind of conversation up. I do usually 3 to 5 fractional CMO or advisory gigs at any given time, and I have a couple slots open if anybody wants me to help figure out the funnel.
Cool. Wow. That sounds like an amazing opportunity. Eric, thank you again so much. And everyone, thank you for being here. Janelle, thank you for the Q&A. We will share out this recording in the next day or so. So keep an eye on your inbox and have a great day. Bye, everybody.